So earlier this year, I finally watched Skins for the first time. I know it's crazy to hear that, me saying that at my big age. And it's crazy too, because I grew up on Tumblr when I was like in middle school, early high school. So I had always seen the GIFs and the photo sets and, read all of the mentally ill Cassie quotes and everything. But it wasn't until earlier this year that I actually watched it for the first time, the UK version, not the American version. And after I made my girls' fragrances video, I was thinking about what fragrances the Skins characters would wear. So that's what I'm going to be talking about today. I'm only going to be covering the first generation, which I think is the most iconic cast. For context, the first generation, or the first two seasons, it takes place in like 2007, 2008, and it also takes place in Bristol, England. Now, I myself am not from the UK, I'm from America, but I tried to make my guesses as educated as possible based on my own knowledge and also a little bit of online research I did. So let's just go ahead and get right into it. Let's start off with Sid. So Sid, I think, smells bad. He's like a typical messy teen boy with typical messy teen boy grooming habits, messy room. He has bad habits, bad style. He probably doesn't do laundry enough, doesn't shower enough. I think he strongly prefers to take deodorant showers based on how he's characterized. And he's always wearing that dang beanie, like literally all the time. Personality wise, he's definitely a little bit insecure. Like, he's always in his best friend Tony's shadow. I don't think he's confident enough to start finding his own style and, like actually expressing himself through appearance and grooming. I think most of the time he is probably not feeling very committed to a grooming routine in general. So he probably mostly smells like body odor, like, that kind of like musty, greasy teenage boy smell. But I do think that there are times when he feels like his body odor is too strong and he skipped too many showers. But instead of taking a shower, he attempts to cover up his body odor with Lynx body spray. There's actually a clip of Sid saying that he wears Lynx. I think it's the scene where he's in the dressing room with Jal. I'll put it here.
You're disgusting.
It's Lynx.
Now, for us Americans, Lynx is known to us as Axe body spray. Axe and Lynx are the exact same brand, just sold under different names in different countries. So I think that Sid wears Lynx because it's what teenage boys wear, especially during this time, like 2007, 2008. Now you can see like little boys going into Sephora and like little boys wearing Aventus and stuff like that, which, that's a discussion for another day. But until recently, Lynx slash Axe was like the thing to wear as a teenage boy. It's cheap. You can easily get it at like the drugstore or like the grocery store. And they have like a pretty wide variety of scents. I would hazard a guess to say that the specific scent that Sid wears is probably Lynx Africa. That's like one of their most popular scents ever. It's also period accurate because it came out before 2007. And according to my research, Lynx Africa is so popular that it's kind of like a defining cultural artifact of British teenage boyhood. If you've smelled it before, it's like sort of spicy, sort of sweet, sort of like musky in that like vaguely masculine way. It's not like a bad smell alone by itself, but I feel like almost every single time I've smelled Axe, it's been like after PE class, and it's been layered with the smell of armpit. Teenage boys really have a tendency to like overspray Axe or Lynx all over themselves too. Like, I just remember the wall of sweat and body spray that would waft down the hallway after PE class. So yeah, that's what Sid smells like, at least in my mind. Let's go on to Michelle. She is one of the three girls in the friend group of the Skins like main cast. And I think she's kind of like the normal girly girl out of the three girls. She's characterized as sort of like the hot girl in the group. Like everyone is always like, oh my God, Michelle's so pretty. Michelle's so cute. She knows she's beautiful. She's not afraid to like strut her stuff a little bit every now and then. And she definitely takes pride in her appearance. One thing I noticed about her also is that she likes to wear kind of like form-fitting clothes. Like we see her in a lot of kind of like tighter jeans, and we see her in a lot of tank tops, things that are kind of like showing off her figure a little bit. And I know it's kind of gross to talk like this because she is a teenage girl, but that's how she styles herself in the series. I think also out of the girls in the group, it's more common that we see Michelle in like traditionally feminine trappings. Like she wears like strappy heels and short skirts. She wears the color pink pretty often. That is the reason why I think that Michelle would, one, have a collection of fragrances. I don't think that she would have just one. And two, I think she would like mostly lean towards fruity florals. I can think of like a few period accurate, like cheap-ish fruity floral fragrances that I can realistically imagine her wearing. Paris Hilton can definitely see her wearing that. So Kiss Me, apparently this was like really, really popular at the time. I think that would have been something Michelle wore as well. And then the Impulse line of body sprays, specifically the Impulse Tease body spray. I think those three kind of like body sprays are things that Michelle definitely would have worn. She would have worn them to school. She maybe would have worn them on a night out. And they're all sort of in that like fruity floral category, like still very like young, youthful, cute. Like she's still a teenage girl. Now, I do think if Michelle ever bought a like real perfume, maybe she would pick out something like DKNY Be Delicious. I think that came out in like 2004 or 2005. It's a really cute, fruity, sweet scent. It smells like juicy apples and grass, and I don't know, it smells very shampoo-y. I used to wear it as well. And other than DKNY Be Delicious, I can also see her wearing Calvin Klein Euphoria, which I think also came out in like 2005 or 2006. I remember seeing the magazine ads for Calvin Klein Euphoria around the time it came out. It's still like a little bit on the lower tier for cost. Like it's not like a Chanel or an Yves Saint Laurent fragrance. It's Calvin Klein. And it's still like a pretty sweet, fruity floral, but it does have this like palpable woodiness in it that makes it a little bit more grown up. I think that this would be the kind of perfume Michelle would put on before she goes like on a date or something like that, as opposed to the body sprays, which are more for like everyday wear. And I think something like Calvin Klein Euphoria would make Michelle feel a little more grown up, and a little more like, okay, yeah, like I'm maturing, I'm not a little girl anymore, that kind of thing. Let's move on to Jal. So, Jal actually is one of my favorite characters. She really stands out to me because she's a pretty strong and like independent, kind of like, I guess, more feminist character. She reacts to life in like a really matter of fact and grounded way, especially when compared to the other two characters, like, or the other two female characters in the group. Like, Cassie is really frenetic and like actively self-destructive at times. And Michelle's problems, a lot of them are kind of, centered around her boyfriend and like, or, whatever male partner that she's with at the time. In contrast, Jal kind of has this like flippant, sarcastic exterior, but she's also like very hardworking and very like put together and high achieving. Um, and at the same time, underneath, she has a lot of like pain that she's hiding, and she has a lot of depth to her character. Now, styling and fashion wise, Jal dresses like pretty modestly but smartly. Um, Her style is a little more like normie basic, I guess, compared to Michelle and Cassie. I feel like in season one, especially, we see her in a lot of like button ups and like clothes that are like a little bit more plain and not like overtly feminine. There's also kind of this like storyline that Michelle has to like teach her how to dress up and be pretty and like teach her how to flirt and stuff like that. So from that like storyline, I'm gleaning that even though Jal is like objectively beautiful, she's not yet fully comfortable with like all of the rituals and expectations of femininity. Um, Especially when compared to someone like Michelle, who is clearly like more comfortable as being perceived as a woman and as a sexual object in general. Not that that's like the healthiest thing to do either, but like that's what I got from the episode where Michelle has to kind of like teach Jal how to dress sexy and wear makeup, and all the boys are like shocked at her like makeover transformation. So, with that being said, I don't think that Jal would be 100% comfortable wearing a perfume that's too like overtly girly or too overtly sexy. I think she might kind of dip a toe into the world of fragrance with something a little more sensible, a little more practical, but still like young and hip. Something that I was thinking of is CK1 by Calvin Klein. Like, I can imagine Michelle dragging Jal to the beauty counter at a department store, like a John Lewis or something. And she makes Jal like try all of her fruity, sexy, girly favorites. Like, maybe she makes her try Calvin Klein Euphoria. And then Jal sees the CK1 next to the Euphoria. She tries it and she's like, okay, this is the one for me. And CK1 is like super inoffensive. It's fresh, it's citrusy, not too loud, not too sweet. It stays pretty close to the skin. It's very like subdued and kind of like neutral, clean. I think CK1 is like the perfect first fragrance for someone who is as high functioning and responsible as Jal. She might also like Dolce & Gabbana Light Blue, which is like a little juicier and fruitier, but I feel like the presentation of CK1 kind of fits Jal's style a little bit more. It's really light, kind of clean, kind of unisex, like inoffensive, and also kind of like put together. So yeah, and I feel like Jal is very much that. She's put together. Which is really interesting to me that she and Chris eventually get together because he's kind of like her total opposite. They really work as foils for each other's characters. And that brings me to Chris's fragrance. Chris is like the ultimate party boy in the group. He's a really tragic figure, honestly. And I think without a doubt that he is the smelliest friend in the Skins group. He's like almost always disheveled. His character comes across as someone who definitely does not have the highest standard for hygiene. Um, he unfortunately also does not have the most stable home life. He doesn't have like a great familial support system. And also we can take these kind of character cues from his style as well. Like he dresses really crazy, which could mean two things. It could mean that he's like running out of laundry and he's just putting on whatever is left that's clean in his closet. He always has like the most insane mismatched outfits that are like really fun to look at. So yeah, it probably means he's running out of laundry or that he's on drugs. And I feel like for him, both are true most of the time. Based on his like general overall instability, I don't think that he wears fragrance. I think he probably smells like cigarettes and piss and sweat most of the time, unfortunately. Love him, but that's how I feel. If he does wear fragrance, like maybe it's like when you have like a perfume in a magazine and you open it and then like rub the page on you. I feel like he would definitely be the type to do that. In season 2, he does like clean up his act quite a bit, but I don't think he ever gets to clean up enough fully and become the type of person to be like, I'm gonna go to Selfridges and buy a fragrance or whatever. Then we have Anwar. Anwar was a really difficult one for me because I think possibly out of the entire main cast, we spend the least time with him. We don't really get to know him that well. The main kind of like things that we know about him are that he comes from a Muslim family. And he's also like pretty goofy his character is used a lot for comedic relief. He's like horny all the time. And because of this horniness and this like need to get girls, I think he definitely does wear fragrance. I think he might also be someone who's in that stage of teenage boyhood where you are dousing yourself with body spray. So I think he's someone who would also wear Lynx, maybe Lynx Africa. I know Lynx Chocolate also came out around this time, I think 2008. I can also see him wearing that. So I wish that I had like a better guess for Anwar, but I just don't because I feel like we don't really get to know him enough. Okay, let's talk about Tony now. Tony, I don't think smells bad. I think he probably smells pretty good most of the time. In the Skins group, he's kind of like the leader of the group. He's definitely like a cool guy, but he's also like really douchey and narcissistic. Like he's attractive, he's well liked by his peers, and he knows it. He has like this allegedly really long list of sexual conquests. And he's kind of sociopathic. Like he really puts Michelle through the ringer with all of his like fucked up games in season 1, especially. He's kind of like the OG archetype for like male manipulator. And of course later in the series he does change for the better, thankfully. Now style-wise, I think he dresses like definitely more subdued than someone like Chris. Like he's not as experimental with his fashion or appearance as some of the other characters. He's a little more normie, I guess, and like he's basically like coasting and relying on his pretty face to make a lasting impression. And because of his like overall kind of like douchey popular guy persona, I think he would wear Jupe, or I think it's actually pronounced Yoop or Yop. It's like a German brand, I think. This fragrance is really, really, really popular, but also really polarizing. It came out in, I think, the late 80s or early 90s, but according to my research, it had a very long lasting impact in the UK. And also, if you've ever smelled it, you will know that it is quite strong. And as we've been talking about, teenage boys love to wear things that smell strong because it covers up their natural teenage boy odor. So yeah, Jupe has like a pretty iconic reputation. Definitely, it's like a love-hate kind of thing. Some people love it, some people hate it. You most likely have smelled it at least one time before out in public. I actually don't think it smells bad. I think it smells pretty nice. It's very synthetic, sweet. It's like a spicy, sweet gourmand, and there's like a vague fruitiness. It's like very vanillic also. There's a lot of like heliotrope. It's very powdery to me. There's a lot of cinnamon in there. And then like a sweet kind of like artificial synthetic tobacco note. Definitely if you haven't smelled it, you should like get a sample of it and try it just because it's so like iconic. Yeah, that's what I think Tony would wear, because it was popular for the era. And I think compared to his other friends in the group who only wear cheap body sprays like Lynx, Tony wearing Jupe would make him feel sophisticated and put together. He does seem to try a little harder with his appearance and his presentation than some of the other boys in the group. And, Jupe is still like a pretty inexpensive fragrance. Like you can get it at the drugstore or at the chemist, as the Brits say. But Tony, of course, he's still a working class teen. Like he's not going to get like a Creed or something like that. All right, let's move on to Maxxie now. Maxxie was another difficult one for me, again, because we don't really get to spend a lot of time with his character. Him and Anwar both, like, they're best friends, and they're the two characters in the main cast that we don't get to spend a lot of time with. I think Maxxie definitely does not smell bad. I would hazard a guess to say that he smells good most of the time. His sort of defining qualities are that he's gay and he loves to dance. So he definitely kind of has this like metrosexual presentation. Like his hair is very groomed. He definitely takes care of himself and like pays way more attention to his hygiene and like his body and his fitness than some of the other Skins characters. I would suspect that most of the time he probably smells like spray tan or like tanning lotion if he was tanning in a tanning bed, which is also likely. He probably smells like flat ironed hair as well, and probably some sort of hair product, some sort of hairspray. I don't know what hairspray or hair gel was popular in the UK in 2007 and 8, but whatever that is, he probably smells like it. Let's also talk about his styling. From what I remember, he is kind of like emulating that like California surfer teen look, like very Hollister, very Abercrombie and Fitch. He has this like bleached hairstyle, the spray tan. He wears a lot of like tank tops. He wears a lot of like tight kind of hoodies from what I remember. Like his fashion style is kind of, it's like sort of preppy, sort of laid back, sort of beachy, like surfery. Um, so I feel like he would maybe wear Abercrombie and Fitch Fierce. I actually looked it up. Abercrombie and Fitch first came to the UK in 2007, and it was pretty popular at the time. So that's on track. And Abercrombie and Fitch Fierce, the fragrance, it's not that expensive. Again, it's at like a pretty accessible price point. It's not a luxury fragrance. And it's from a brand that is known for this kind of like surfer California fashion style that he's trying to emulate. It's like a pretty, nice, typical masculine scent. It's kind of like woody, musky, a little bit spicy, a little bit fresh. Um, I honestly, it's been a long time since I've smelled that fragrance, but I can remember a lot of people when I was younger wearing it. Or like when you would walk into Abercrombie and Fitch, the whole store would smell like Fierce. So yeah, I think that's what Maxxie smells like. I think that would be kind of like on brand for his character. Last of all, let's talk about Cassie. Save the best for last. She is another one in the cast that I don't think had the best hygiene. She's definitely not like the most stable character in the series, and I think most of the time we can safely assume she smells like cigarettes and unwashed hair. But I do think that there are also definitely periods in her life where she is at least trying to smell good. We can't speak about her perfume preference without touching on her eating disorder, which is like one of her main issues in the series. Her anorexia, it's absolutely a cry for help, an attempt to gain control over her life. And it manifests not just in her starving herself, but also with an obsession of food. A moment from the series that really stands out for me is the scene where we see that she keeps like a really tidily organized collection of candies and snacks in a drawer under her bed. I'm going to put a picture up here so that you guys can see it. This moment in the series really stands out to me, and it kind of makes me think about like where we are right now culturally. There's so many think pieces kind of circulating about the current gourmand explosion in the fragrance market, and whether or not it coincides or correlates with the rise in Ozempic and orthorexia masquerading as wellness culture, basically. I think if Skins took place now in 2026, Cassie would definitely have enjoyed the current moment we're in as far as this boom of gourmand fragrances. Like, I can imagine her tending to a highly organized collection of like hyper specific dessert perfumes, in a similar way that she organizes and sorts her snack collection. Like, she would definitely have a chocolate brownie perfume, a cherry candy perfume, a banana candy perfume, a lemon cake one, a toasted marshmallow one, a blueberry one. Like, she would be like a quintessential aunt. But that is if Skins happened in 2026. It obviously did not. So let's talk about a more period accurate fragrance for her. I think she would wear Britney Spears' Fantasy. It came out in 2005, so like a couple years before season 1 of Skins aired. And Fantasy is really sweet. It's really dessert-like. It's fruity. It smells like strawberry kiwi and vanilla cupcake. Very girly, princessy, like innocent smelling. And it's also quite inexpensive. And I keep, touching on this like cheap fragrance thing because all the Skins characters are from working class backgrounds. None of them are wearing things like Penhaligon's or like Floris or Creed or anything like that. So Fantasy again is a fragrance that you can buy at a drugstore, and it's a pretty accessible price point for a working class British high schooler. Cassie might wear a fragrance that's a little more niche than Britney Spears' Fantasy, maybe a little more fanciful and quirky, maybe not quite as mass appealing. Because fashion-wise, Cassie dresses herself in a very like quirky way. She has a really distinct style. In her most like stable, put together moments, or honestly, even in her more unstable ones, her outfits are really cute, but kind of like mismatched, and whimsical and sort of like patchworked together. I always think about like this one shirt that she wore that had like a big bow on it. There was another shirt that had like all these like animals printed on it, or maybe it was a skirt, I can't remember. So that kind of like mismatched, kind of like whimsy, cutesy style, I think that's very reflective of her personality. So if I wanted to choose a fragrance that was more whimsical and more kind of in line with her style, I would maybe choose Lolita Limpica. It's still a pretty sweet fragrance. Like it's got that kind of fluffy almond vanilla heliotrope thing going on. Um, but it's got a little more depth from some like florals. There's some powdery violets in there. And of course, we have that like spicy anise licorice note in there. I think Cassie would really love the bottle design of Lolita Limpica also and find it very enchanting. And it would definitely make her go like, oh, wow. I must say that I can also imagine Cassie being the type of girl who randomly wears some like older vintage perfume that she's picked up at a yard sale or an estate sale or something. Like for instance, if she picks up Anais Anais by Cacharel. I think Anais Anais would actually be kind of fitting for her. It is a white floral from the 70s or 80s, I think, but it's not like as rich and heady and opulent as some of the other white florals from that time. It's a little more soft and powdery, lots of carnation and lily and hyacinth. There's some kind of like green freshness in there as well. Um, I can imagine that she would get her little bottle of Anais Anais, and then she would wear it, and her boyfriend Sid would be like, "What the hell? You smell like my gran," or whatever. Sorry, my British accent is horrible. And then Cassie would be like, "Oh, it's my new favorite perfume. Someone gave it to me in the bathroom at a club," or something like that. Um, so yeah, that's Cassie. I do think that she would gravitate towards sweet, gourmand, kind of like edible smelling fragrances. Um, but I can also see her like wearing something totally random out of left field, something vintage, but still kind of like delightfully charming and quirky. Bonus round, Effy, who is Tony's sister, is not technically part of the main cast in Skin Series 1, but I'm going to talk about her anyway for a little bit. I think she mostly smells like cigarettes, and I think she smells like Paco Rabanne Black Excess. That is very fitting for the time and the place. Effie definitely has like a more punk rock, like grungy kind of style. She's always like has these like raccoon eyes with how she does her eyeliner and her makeup, and she's always wearing these like combat boots and things like that. So I think Black Excess by Paco Rabanne would be like a really fitting fragrance for her. It's this kind of like, it's sweet, but it is kind of this like warm, spicy, kind of like chocolatey gourmand. There is some woodiness in it as well. It's a little bit deeper and darker compared to DKNY Be Delicious. It still is like pretty fruity and sweet though, so it's still like pretty suitable for a teen girl. It's not like a crazy oud or anything like that. But I do think it would be fitting for Effie Stoneham. And then our second bonus round, the only time that they actually mention the exact name of a fragrance in the entire first two seasons of Skins, Sid's mom mentions that she wears opium. This is after she gets divorced from Sid's dad or separated from Sid's dad. She visits Sid and then he's like, "You smell like something. What is that?" And she's like, "Oh, it's opium. My new boyfriend likes it," or whatever. Yeah, that is all the Skins characters. There are some gaps in my knowledge and in my guesses. I really wish that we did get to spend a little more time with Maxxie and Anwar because I feel like their stories are a little bit unfinished compared to some of the other cast members. But yeah, let me know what you guys thought. Again, I'm not from the UK, so I tried my best to make these guesses accurate, but if I was inaccurate, please let me know. I'm always open to learning more. Let me know if you were a teenager during this time, what did you wear? Because I'm curious to know about that as well. All right, thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.